Did you see the parade of angry white men chanting, "White man, fight back! White man, fight back!" It's extremely alarming to hear, but I'm more so confused. My brother in Christ, for people that look like us to the outside world, it appears that we run and own everything. So most people are curious, who are you fighting back against? And not only that, if you're talking about Charlie Kirk, if you're talking about most mass and school shooters, they're people that look like us. They're white people. So I'm genuinely confused. When you're out there on the street with your tiki torches and you're yelling, "White man, fight back!" What? Who? Who are you being oppressed by? Ourselves? We need to be fighting ourselves? I'm curious. And not to mention, after the third or fourth time saying, "White men, fight back," don't you just naturally want to get quiet and just be like, oh, maybe white men should be fighting back against our own, against fellow people that look like us. We can stand up for injustices, absolutely, but to think that white men are the ones being oppressed, hard to gain an audience on that platform, my guy.
So this is probably going to be very controversial. I feel more safe in a space shared with black men than I feel very unsafe in a space shared by white men. Now, before y'all get your panties in a wad and get all pissed off about this, when I am surrounded by a bunch of white men, I'm constantly looking around. I have no fear in a room full of black men. The reason why: when I go to the movies, I don't worry that a black man's gonna up the movie theater. When I go to my church, I don't worry that a black man's gonna the church. When I go to the mall, I don't worry that a black man's gonna the mall. When I go to my children's school, I don't worry that a black man's gonna the school. Black men will target one or two or three individuals. White men will go schools, movie theaters, churches, your grocery store. So before you say that you're worried about being surrounded by black men, you better think about that.
White people. If crime statistics really mattered to us, we would be talking about white men every damn day. We as white people love to throw around statistics when it comes to the black community. We love to misconstrue data about poverty rates, crime rates, single-parent households. Here's the thing. If you really want to talk about problematic behavior in terms of statistics, we need to talk about white men. Most mass shootings in America? White men. School shootings? White men. Intimate partner violence, typically known as domestic violence? White men. Police brutality and systemic violence? White men. Online harassment and extremism? White men. Domestic terrorism? White men. Serial killers? White men. The demographic making up the vast majority of CEOs, judges, senators, and police chiefs who refuse to hold white men responsible? White men. And yet us white men are really talked about as being a problem. Few white people are asking, what's wrong with white men? What's wrong with the culture? Few white men are demanding that we be fixed. And why? Because we as white men humanize and individualize white violent offenders. And it's time to flip the script. To shame and blame, because I know white males are incredibly fragile when it comes to that, but instead to name what's really going on and who continues to be protected and not held accountable because of selective storytelling. I hope this helps.
Hey, Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rukakudash. I want to give double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. And grace and peace to you elect around the four winds, believing and pushing this truth in all sincerity. May the blessing of election be upon your houses. This is your fellow servant, Rokaria from the GMS Orlando camp, coming at you with another impromptu lesson. Excuse me. And tonight's lesson is entitled, Idumea is fed up with Idumea. All right. And the inspiration for tonight's lesson comes from those clips that you've seen at the beginning. You know, basically going into how Idumea is divided. All right. These Edomites are divided, and now more so than ever. All right, we're living in that day and age of the great revealing of Esau Edom, namely that man of sin, that son of perdition, spoken about in 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter. All right, and as we're living in that age of the great revealing of Esau Edom, a lot of shame, all right, is being brought to the forefront. All right, a lot of hypocrisy is being brought to the forefront. And as that shame and hypocrisy is being brought to the forefront, these Edomites are starting to separate. All right, these Edomites, the house of Idumea is starting to divide, in which Yahushua said himself that a house divided, what? It faileth. All right, let's get that in Luke chapter 11. And I'm going to get to the point in verse 17. It says, but he, knowing their thoughts, said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and a house divided against a house falleth. If Satan also be divided against himself, how shall his kingdom stand? All right, and right now we're living in the day and age in where Satan is divided against himself. You have right-wing Edomites, left-wing Edomites, Democrats, Republicans. Basically, the same mistakes Esau made back during the Roman and Greek Empire are the same mistakes being made here in this day and age. And the same results are proceeding. The same results are following. All right, now you have a great divide within this Idumean kingdom. And that divide is only getting larger and larger. All right, as these different psyops and these different controversies happen, all right, that divide amongst Idumea is getting larger and larger and larger until they meet their demise, because this is a precursor to the downfall of Babylon the Great. This is a precursor to the downfall of an empire, a divide amongst its citizens, and chiefly a divide amongst the noble class of its citizens. There's always been a divide between the elites and the slave class, you know, but now you have the so-called elite class, the average Joe Smo Edomite, divided against himself, not only himself, but the elites of his own tribes. Because now that man of sin, that son of perdition, are the elites, the Rockefellers, the DuPonts, the Gettys, the Oppenheimers, those who control and mismanage the resources. Now that they're being revealed through the spirit of the Lord's mouth, which are his prophets. All right, now the average Edomite is seeing how he's being phased out of society right along with the Negroes. And now he's starting to try to fight back. And like that Edomite said in the first clip, you know, when you look in the mirror, the only thing that these Edomites are chanting white man fight back for, you really fighting back against yourself, because the so-called white man has been the problem in the planet Earth. When you go back and you look at history, see what we preach on the highways and byways week in and week out, you know, what the Lord has brothers saying on the highways and byways isn't just dog water. It's not hot air. You know, brothers aren't blowing hot air out of their mouth every single week. All right, there are facts that are being brought out. And when you look at the facts of history and who has tormented and terrorized nations of people historically, it has been the so-called white man, emphatically, without a doubt. And now all that information is being brought out. And now a lot of shame is starting to cover, you know, the house of Edom. Let's get this. This is Isaiah chapter 47. No, it's like it. Get this. Hold on. All right, let me hold this as well. Obadiah. All right, this is Isaiah 47 and verse 3. It says, thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yea, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man. As for our Redeemer, the Lord of hosts is his name, the Holy One of Israel. All right, and now the Lord is uncovering the nakedness of the so-called white man. All right, Esau Edom. And his shame is starting to be seen. His hypocrisy is starting to be seen. All right, all these different, you know, these different mind games that the so-called white man has been playing for generations are now being brought out to the forefront. You know, these different covering cats that he put over the people, all right, amongst the educational system, amongst the economy, amongst the housing market, amongst the monetary system, all right, amongst the family structure. All of these stumbling blocks and mind games that he's placed within the society are now being brought to the forefront. There are a lot of games that have been being played, man. The so-called white man has been playing games. Wicked, childish games, man. And now those games are being brought to the forefront. All right. The Lord has risen up men, all right, to put these boys down, cast these boys down through the Spirit. All right, with the words of these prophecies, man. Casting all this childish shit, you know, to the dirt. And bringing out the facts, man. It says, thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yet thy shame shall be seen. And now the shame is being seen not only, you know, by the average so-called American, all right, but all the nations are starting to see the shame of this great whore, which is Babylon the Great. I will take vengeance and I will not meet thee as a man. All right, let me get this in Obadiah. All right, verse 10. It says, for thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. All right, and for his violence against, you know, the house of Israel, all right, shame has covered him. And for that very same violence, the Lord is stirring up vengeance. The Lord is preparing vengeance to cut thee off forever. See, all the wickedness that the so-called white man has propagated throughout the four corners of the earth isn't going to go unscathed. All right. Be not deceived. The Heavenly Father is not mocked, pursuant to Galatians, the 6th chapter. All right. What a man sowed, that shall he also reap. All right. The scriptures also liken judgment unto a ring in the book of 2nd Esdras, the 5th chapter. It all comes full circle. And now the just dues of Idumea are coming full circle. And as it also says in Nehemiah, all right, and Nahum, Slakia, the 1st chapter, the wicked shall not be acquitted. They're being held accountable for all the wickedness that they propagated and continue to propagate throughout the four corners of the earth. And this long disease, pursuant to Sirach or Ecclesiastes, the 10th chapter and the 10th verse, is getting ready to be cut off. This long disease is getting ready to be cut off. All right. And this is what the earth desperately needs. The earth desperately needs new rulership, new management, a new government. Because the government that has been set in place, the management, all right, that is in power now is not fit. They're not cutting it. The earth itself is in a state of lamentation. Right? We were beyond the people. All right, the Lord's creation itself is in a state of lamentation under the rule of the so-called white man. And now we're coming to that boiling point to where now even Idumeans are fed up with Idumeans. The rhetoric, the bullshit that comes out of the average Idumean's mouth, it's starting to become too much. You know, it's been too much for years now, but it's really starting to become too fucking much. Shut the fuck up, man. You know, everybody's coming to that conclusion that the so-called white man needs to shut the fuck up in the planet Earth, man. Matter of fact, just move. Just fucking move. Watch out, man. These average Idumeans are fed up. And the Lord said in the book of Isaiah, the 19th chapter, right? He said that he will mingle a perverse spirit in the midst of Egypt. This is Isaiah 19 and verse 14. It says, the Lord, Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, have mingled a perverse spirit in the midst thereof. And they have caused Egypt, which America is the modern day Egypt, all right, spiritual Egypt, to err in every work thereof, as a drunken man staggereth in his vomit. And You know what? I want to look up this word for perverse. I want to see. I want to see what that word perverse is on etymology online. Give me a second as you look it up. That word perverse on etymology online, it says wicked, unnatural, degenerate, contrary. All right, turned away, contrary, askew. It says spiteful, malicious. All right, and that's the spirit that the Lord has mingled. All right, in this spiritual Egypt, He's mingled a very malicious, spiteful, and contrary spirit. You know, in this place, there's a very malicious spirit that's running rampant in America. All right, all these different judgments that are taking place. All the love of many is truly waxing cold, like it says in Matthew 24. All right, you have people getting put to death at a very rapid rate, continuously, grievously. You just had that lady that was murdered on the train, you know, stabbed up by that Jake. You just had this guy CK that was blown, got put in the dirt by one of his own people. You had 2 Jakes from Mississippi. I believe that it was yesterday, September 16th. You know, that were found on September 16th to 15th, that were found lynched, you know, on a college campus. And the news goes on and on and on. And it's continuing to get more and more malicious in America because that's the type of perverse spirit that the Lord mingled here. All right, a very spiteful spirit. It also says a contrary. All right, and everything, every standard that the Lord has set up, all right, this place, this society has been contrary to it, man. Esau set up everything in this establishment to go contrary to the ways of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. Everything from the way we write, all right, to the way that the laws are governed in this place. Everything is contrary to what the Lord has set up. And that's the type of spirit that the Lord has mixed in here, you know, ultimately, because this kingdom was never meant to sustain itself. That this kingdom was never meant, you know, to be something that was long term. There was never any longevity, you know, plans of longevity for America, Babylon the Great. This was always a temporary kingdom, a temporary blessing, you know, for the wicked. There's no way you can sustain this type of society. And now we're starting to see the fruits of establishing a kingdom upon wickedness. All right. You know, now these Idumeans are fed up with their fellow man. And as they're fed up with their fellow man, guess what's going to ensue afterward? All right. A fall. Satan's going to cast themselves out like lightning. You know, the Lord said it himself. A house divided will fall. And we're witnessing the onset of that fall right now as we speak. You know, this is Isaiah chapter 19 and verse 1. The burden of Egypt. Behold, the Lord rideth upon the swift cloud, and shall come into Egypt. And the idols of Egypt shall be moved out of his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight one against another, brother against brother, and every one against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. And the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the counsel thereof. And they that seek to the idols and to the charmers and to them that have familiar spirits and to wizards. All right. And now what the Lord is doing is causing the spirit of this modern day Egypt to fail. What a time to be alive in our right mind. The Lord is causing the spirit of Egypt to fail. And we are eyewitnesses, all right, to the prophecies that were told aforetime playing out. And it's only going to continue to get worse and worse from here on out for Babylon. All right. So keep your head up, brothers. Look forward to what the Lord has next, because it's going to get worse. All right. It's going to get worse for this kingdom. you know? And as it gets worse for this kingdom, the kingdom of heaven, which is within each and every one of the elect, is getting stronger. With that being said, shalom. Stay up.